Today, I'm going to dive into the top 10 flies you're going to want for your next trip to the Bahamas. The Bahamas are one of the best bonefish destinations on Earth. With hundreds of islands and even more lodges, there's a plethora of options to choose from. And while bonefish in the Bahamas are certainly plentiful, it's the size of these fish that keeps anglers coming back. They're just way bigger than destinations like Mexico or Belize. And in this video, we're going to make sure that you've got the right flies to fool even the pickiest eleuthera bonefish. But before we dive into the specific patterns, let's talk about some general concepts that you're going to want to know before you start buying or tying a bunch of flies. And the first is going to be size. If you fish for bonefish in Mexico or Belize, the size of Bahamas bonefish flies are generally going to be about one size bigger. Typically, you'll be fishing a, say, 2 to 6 size fly in the Bahamas, while you're going to be fishing, say, a 4 to 8 in most other destinations. And the second thing that you're going to want to take into consideration is weight. And while we've talked about this in other videos, the most important thing when it comes to choosing a bonefish selection is having a variety of weights. So what do I mean by that? I mean, you have to start with a blind fly, a fly with no weight at all, and take it all the way to a lead-eye fly. That's going to allow you to fish to bonefish that are tailing, all the way down to bonefish that are down deep mudding in a channel. And if you take one thing away from this video, it is that you can tie one pattern in a variety of different weights and be a-okay. If you have a bunch of patterns in the same weight, you're going to be in trouble. But now, let's dive into those specific patterns. And the first one is going to be the rubber legs gotcha. The rubber legs gotcha is tied in a variety of different ways, and there's really no right or wrong way to tie them. I personally prefer a more traditional rubber legs gotcha, if such a thing exists. And what I mean by that is some nice orange tipped legs, like the ones here on this Hot Legs Foxy Gotcha from Fulling Mill. But the reality is you can tie these legs in various different places and ways, and I found that all of those fly options work pretty well, and I'm just going to show you a couple of different ones and talk about them. This is Rio's Arctic Bone Spawning Shrimp Fly, and while it's called a spawning shrimp, this is basically a rubber legs gotcha, even though it's tied in a fairly different way. It's going to serve that same niche in your fly box. Similarly, I've got another fly from Rio here, which is called the Bony Foo-Foo, and this is more of a rabbit strip gotcha with some rubber legs. And I would say if I were personally tying this, I'd opt for some hotter legs, but this is also going to work quite well. And last but not least is the Beck's Silly Legs, which is a fairly traditional rubber legs gotcha with the legs tied in at the eyes. And so why are there so many options here, and why does this pattern work so well? Well, it's pretty simple. The bonefish in the Bahamas have gotten really used to seeing gotchas and crazy charlies. These flies add some variation, some extra movement, and frankly are something that they haven't seen every single day of their lives. And that makes them extremely effective, and that's why they're our #1 fly for the Bahamas. And before we move on to our next fly, I wanted to let you know that this video is brought to you by Trident Travel, which is our new destination travel service. We work with all of the top lodges in the Bahamas, so if you're looking to have an amazing trip and never pay more than booking directly through the lodge, give us a call. #2 on our list is the EP Spawning Shrimp, and if you've seen other fly videos for saltwater destinations, you'll know that this is one of my favorites, and it's no exception for the Bahamas. Typically though, I'm recommending this as a permit fly, and of course it's a fantastic, if not one of the absolute best permit flies out there. But in the Bahamas, the bonefish also really like it. So whether or not you're going to a lodge like Soulfly that has quite a lot of permit fishing, or you're just headed to Andros to catch some bonefish, this is one that you're absolutely going to want to have in your box. #3 on our top 10 list is going to be the Clouser. Yes, you heard it right. We are recommending a Clouser Minnow for bonefish in the Bahamas. And while I wouldn't tie your traditional 2/0 chartreuse white Clouser for bonefish, when tied like this, with some smaller eyes, and especially in this white tan color, the skinny water version of a Clouser is an absolutely deadly fly for the Bahamas bonefish. And it's especially effective when you're targeting those bigger fish. Those bigger bones definitely still eat shrimp, But they've also started to eat some smaller minnows as well. And the Clouser is just a great impressionistic pattern that imitates a wide range of different saltwater prey. And if you're fishing with Captain Marvin Miller in Mangrove Key, you're definitely going to want to have this one in your box. Number 4 on our list of Bahamas bonefish flies is going to be the Blind Charlie. And while this is a fantastic pattern, the more important part, like I already mentioned, is having some flies that are tied blind or weightless. This is going to be your go-to pattern whenever you see bonefish tailing in very little water. The Blind Charlie is going to make almost no splash when it hits the water, and it sinks slowly enough that you can keep it in the line of sight of those super spooky bonefish. When it comes to tailing fish, this is my absolute go-to pattern. Number 5 on our list is another favorite in these videos, which is the Bonefish Bitters. Again, this is a fly that seems to catch bonefish when they're not eating anything else. I don't really know why. It imitates a little hermit crab or an urchin or something, but when they get really, really picky, the Bonefish Bitters is what they eat. Number 6 on our list is going to be the Squimp. And the Squimp is sort of a cross between a gotcha, a clouser, a spawning shrimp. It's just sort of a generally great impressionistic pattern. And due to the way the weights are positioned, you can fish this in a wide range of different depths. And in the Bahamas, when the fish start to get a little picky, the Squimp is not a super popular fly. It's probably one that not every one of those fish have seen, and it's always one that I've got in my box. As a bonus, it's also a great tailing permit fly. And along those same lines is number 7 on my list, which is Veverka's Mantis shrimp. This is honestly just a fantastic impressionistic pattern. In the Bahamas, you're going to be fishing this more on those sandy flats along the edges of mangroves. But again, if you see that permit, it's also going to be a great permit fly. What I really like about this fly is that it's generally tied bigger and can get the attention of those bigger bonefish, especially if they've already ignored or refused your smaller fly. This is a pretty big meal, and due to the bead chain eyes, you can fish it in shallower water than the EP spawning shrimp. And now that you've got your box filled with bonefish flies of lots of different sizes and weights, let's talk about some flies for other species. And number 8 on my list is going to be the strong arm Merkin. And this is a fantastic permit fly because let's face it, the Bahamas is becoming a fantastic permit destination. In fact, on our last trip down to Soulfly Lodge, we got some fantastic shots and landed a really great permit. And this strong arm, especially in the white color, tends to work really well for those Bahamas permit. The Bahamas tends to be more of a crab-focused fishery than a shrimp-focused fishery like Mexico and Belize are. So if you're looking for a great crab pattern, don't get a standard Merkin, go with the strong arm, and definitely have a couple in white. Number 9 on our list is going to be a Barracuda Fly because, let's face it, while you're going to be looking for those bonefish, you're definitely going to run into a massive Barracuda. And you're going to want to have that 9 or 10 weight rigged up with a fly like this. And while there are lots of styles of Barracuda flies, like this Umpqua Cuda fly or this Cuda Killer fly, the most important part is having a large fly with a big hook and lots of flash. And don't forget your wire leader. And last but not least is going to be the EP Peanut Butter. And I recommend it in a black and purple. This is going to be your go-to fly for pretty much anything you might see on the flats in the Bahamas that isn't a bonefish or a permit. That's going to mean tarpon, sharks, jacks, snapper. Pretty much anything else you want to catch is going to eat an EP peanut butter, and probably in this black and purple color. If I were going, I'd take a 3/0 and a 4/0, maybe a couple of each, and if I wanted to target sharks, I'd probably go up to, say, an 8/0. But wait, you might be wondering, what about those gotchas and crazy charlies? Yes, I think you can go on an entire trip to the Bahamas and catch plenty of fish without a single traditional gotcha or crazy charlie, but let's face it, you've probably got those in your box anyway. So try some of these flies. They will absolutely increase your angling success. And tell us how you did by leaving us a comment in the box below. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel because we've got lots of great Bahamas content coming right up. I'm Ben, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.